Hello everyone and welcome again to another episode of the Celtic Coach. Now if you were listening in today on KOWS.FM every Friday from 1 to 3, you'd have heard me talk today about manly confidence. So I thought I'd do a little YouTube clip just to encapsulate some of the things that we talked about today. A lot of men write into the show and call me on the show and ask, how do I create more self-confidence? Which is really interesting because most women think that men kind of come onto the planet with this self-confidence built in, and it couldn't be more from the truth. In fact, we don't, and we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort creating this self-confidence within ourselves. Now, there's two types of self-confidence. There's one that's the outer self-confidence. That's the one that the clothes and the hat and the looks and the body and the truck, the car, whatever it might be, the personality, so on and so on. That's an outer self-confidence. And then there's an inner self-confidence. Now, the inner self-confidence doesn't need any clothes. It doesn't need the big Ford F-150 truck that's 10 feet off the ground. Although nothing against Ford's trucks. I see a lot of 20-year-olds here in the town flying around in them, and I don't think it's something that will create self-confidence for you. However, it sure beats walking, but nice to have it in any case. But we're talking about self-confidence today, and how do we create it? Now, this inner self-confidence is really something that it needs to be cultivated, and it needs to be developed. And a lot of men, they say to me on the show, Dermot, this self-development thing, this self-confidence thing, it takes way too much effort and way too much time. And I really don't want to make the effort, and I sure as heck don't have the time. So I want to simplify some ways that we can create self-confidence. Now, the thing to remember in our chat today is simply this, that everything that you want is on the other side of fear. Another way of saying that is when you face your fear, you will always have an outcome. You will always have an experience. And these experiences are what creates self-confidence. There's no magical mystery about self-confidence, men. There's really no magical recipe that says if I do this and this and this, I'm going to create self-confidence. Self-confidence is an inner job. And Rome wasn't built in a day, so you can create self-confidence in a very clear, methodical, if you want, but a very simple, crisp way. I like to think of self-confidence as a really well-worn pair of socks that you wear all the time, and at some point you put them on so much that they can stand by themselves. And that's kind of what self-confidence is about. It's taking that time to do a little bit of development work on yourself. Now, are there any quick fixes to self-confidence? I don't know that there are. I've tried all the quick fixes down through the years. I've been doing this. I'm a professional life coach and a trainer of life coaches. And I've been doing this for quite a while. And I've tried all the quick fixes. And they're great for quick fixes. It's like the addict who likes a quick fix. But they're not sustainable over the long term. They're a short-term solution to not to solve a long-term sustainable task or outcome that you want. Now, inner self-confidence, well, let's take the outer self-confidence. Outer self-confidence says, look at me, look what I've got, look what I can do, screaming, look at me, love me, right? The old Hollywood story. And inner self-confidence says, there's no need to look at me. And whether you look at me or love me or don't love me, I'm good either way. And this is the inner confidence. This is the self-confidence that we're looking for. Now, how do we cultivate that? One of the things in life that is prevalent and the only solution for it is death. People say, Dermot, I want to have a life free of problems. And I say, well, that's easy. I said, you'll have that when you die. But when you're living, you will not have a life free of problems. Now, as the man says, suffering is optional, pain is inevitable, which I totally believe. But in terms of problems, death is the only solution. Now, I don't want you to die. and I want you to live your life and have a good life. This is one of the reasons I create the Celtic Coach show every Friday, is to share some of this knowledge with you. So, having said that, all right, so we're alive and we're living life. So how do we then, Dermot, how do we move through and work with this thing called self-confidence? How do we start to build it? Problems are a fact of life, gentlemen. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how good looking you are or what clothes you have or the car you drive. Problems are just a way of life. Now, the nice thing about problems is that there's a gift in every problem if you choose to see it. But most of us look at a problem as a wall. Oh, I got a wall and there's a problem and I can't get past it. And we call up all our friends and tell them, hey, I've got a problem. Did you know that, telling all your friends about your problems, 80% of them don't care, and 20% are actually glad that you do have the problem. So, unless you're going to hire a coach, here's some questions to ask yourselves when problems arise. And here's a way to create more self-confidence in yourself through the gift of problems. Problems are nothing more than a question that has not been answered. Okay, so let's look at it this way. You have a problem that comes up in your life. First question you can ask yourself is, okay, as men we want to jump forward and we want to say, I want to get this and I want to solve this problem. But if we could put the pause on for a moment and just say to ourselves, okay, so I got this problem and it does need a solution. But does it need a solution in this moment? No. So I can take a step back and I can just hit the pause button for a moment on life and think, okay, so what do I want to do about this? Start off with a very simple question. What might be one small gift that's hidden in this problem? You can ask yourself, what's one thing that I could learn from this problem? You could ask yourself, okay, now don't get into the solution yet. Play with the problem before you get into the manly solution. I've got to find a solution. Take a leaf from your girlfriend's book and talk about it first. I know that's frightening, isn't it? But talk about it first to yourself. Okay, so what can I learn from this? What might be a hidden gift in this? What's not perfect about this problem yet? How can I make it even better? You can ask yourself, what's one thing that I'm grateful for about this problem? And when you've answered a few of those questions, the solution will start to come to you. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, you can say, okay, so what's one thing that I can do to move around this problem? Or what's one way that I can move over this problem? How can I look at this problem in a different way? Maybe you want to get somebody's advice. You don't even have to call a person up. You can do what's called a little as-if shift. So I do this with my clients. I say, John, if someone could give you some really valuable insights or information or possible solutions about this problem, who might that be? Somebody from history, somebody living today, a mentor, who might it be? And sometimes people say like, oh, Martin Luther King or Gandhi or my best friend Joe. And I'll invite that person in that moment. They don't have to call the friend Joe up, but in that moment I'll say, okay, just take a moment and close your eyes if it works for you. And I'm going to invite you to invite Joe into your mind, and we're going to talk to him. And then I simply say, I want you just to step into Joe's shoes for a moment and ask Joe, what guidance, what suggestion, what opinions, what would he share with you about this problem? And then the client does that, and they usually always share something very valuable. So it's not so much about solving the problem as it is creating some new perspectives, some new ways of looking at the problem. So that's one of the things we can do to create self-confidence. Another thing you can do is a little self-guided imagery. This is very powerful. Remember, the first 30 minutes in the morning, and the last 30 minutes at night are the most important for creating a change in your subconscious mind. So at night, simply when you're lying in bed, it's called a somnambulistic state, and 30 minutes before you're going to sleep, or 30 minutes, you get into bed, you're lying there, you start to become relaxed. That's a good time to just take a moment, allow your eyes to close, and simply see yourself, like on a TV screen, or visualize yourself up there on a TV screen, and you're walking with confidence. And just take a note, have a look at yourself and say, okay, what am I noticing there? I'm noticing how I'm walking, I'm noticing I'm smiling, I'm noticing my shoulders are relaxed, I'm noticing that I'm walking with a bit of a strut. Whatever you do, just notice, just ask yourself, what am I noticing here? And take a moment and smile. Smiling is a really good way. If you want to face your problems, you might as well do it with a smile. It doesn't cost anything. The only thing is practice. For some of us, have to practice smiling. But you can smile a little bit and look at that up on the movie screen or in your mind. And just see yourself walking down that street. Moving is really good. And you're moving with confidence. How are you walking? What are you saying to yourself? What are some of the affirmations or what are some of the thoughts in your head? And if you do that for about 30 seconds every evening, and then in the morning, the 30 minutes when you get up, the first 30 minutes are very powerful for reconditioning your conscious mind through the subconscious mind. Come up, get up and use an affirmation. And every day, in every way, I'm becoming more and more confident. And if you just do that for a minute or two in the morning, you will start to feel that shift. It's amazing how it happens. I've used this in my own life when I went from doing workshops to being a trainer for a college, and I used it every day. By the way, I used that same visualization, a little different, to give up smoking. I simply saw myself walking with health and vitality every day, and eventually the feeling, that I gotta have a cigarette, it went away. It's very powerful to do that in the morning, 30 minutes after you wake up, or the 30 minutes before you go into bed. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. Ask yourself some different questions about your problems. That creates a doorway. It creates an opening. Remember, what we want is on the other side of our fears. That's if we start to face our fears, gentlemen. And you're not talking about big ones. They can be small ones. You can take them one at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day, And self-development is a very sacred journey. So take your time. There's no rush. Don't beat yourself up about it. Take it one little tiny step at a time. My mother always said, it's the little things that mean so much. And it's definitely true when we're building more self-confidence in ourselves. So ask yourself, what's one small thing that I can do today to create more confidence? Maybe you don't tell your girlfriend or your wife or your husband as often as you would like, hey, I love you and I really appreciate you in my life. Take time. Do that. That's another way to create self-confidence. Look at things that you want to do in your life. Hey, I'd really love to change my job, or I'd really love to have a better job, or whatever it might be. I'd like to make more money, or I'd like to go on a holiday, or I'd like to go hiking a little bit more. I'd like to, create the habit of more health, whatever it might be in your life. And just ask yourself, what's one small way, or what's one small action step, or one thing that you can do to begin to move in that direction? And that's a great way to start to build self-confidence. Also, by the way, the secret to creating habits, you do it in very small increments. So I hope this has been helpful, this little chat today. If you want to hear the full 1 hour show, you can go to, just type in the Celtic Coach Manly Confidence, and I have the whole thing there as an audio on YouTube. Anyway, I'm the Celtic Coach. Cheers, have fun, and enjoy the journey.